Hello, everyone. This is Curtis Brown, your instructor for HSCP 302, Emergency Planning and Incident Response. This is week 4 of the semester, and we start a discussion on planning. A couple of things I want to do in this video very briefly. I want to do a couple of updates and administrative overview items. I want to then discuss an overview of the first 3 weeks, weeks 1 through 3. Briefly discuss the discussion about board posts and their quality, and then look ahead to this week's reading and then the weeks ahead. So just in terms of updates, I like to also tell you just a little bit about what I'm doing in my career as a professional emergency manager. Here in the state, last week we had some major flooding, mostly out in Southwest Virginia. The governor had to issue a state of emergency declaration that was based on a suggestion from my agency to the governor. We actually held a conference call laying out the need for the emergency declaration. Out in Southwest Virginia, there is a good amount of rural areas that lack resources. These areas are low-lying and then causing flooding. They're located, many of them, right along different riverways. So last week we had about 500 homes that were impacted by flooding. We had to send resources out, swiftwater rescue resources and other personnel. So what a state of emergency declaration does, it elevates in terms of public messaging, letting the public know that there's a serious threat, and it allows, from a resource standpoint, for money and assets and tools and personnel to be used to limit the loss of life and protect critical infrastructure. So we have personnel working with our local partners in the Emergency Operations Center, helping with coordination of the disaster, working with our various partners from State Police, National Guard, had personnel out there with high water rescue vehicles, Virginia Department of Transportation, ensuring roads were closed that were flooded out. One of the biggest, flooding, and this came up in your readings, flooding is our biggest worldwide threat in terms of a most deadly threat or hazard. And one of the things that we constantly try to tell people is, turn around, don't drown. They see these roads that are flooded. They look like they can pass because they got a big truck or something like that. It only takes 1 inch of water to lift a vehicle, and then you are essentially downriver. Most folks drown inside their vehicles once they're swept away. So as a preventative message for you all, turn around, don't drown, because we have seen a number of fatalities here in Virginia related to that. So simultaneous to the flooding that was occurring end of last week, we're still working with our partners at the Department of Health on preparedness and response for the coronavirus. One last point related to the flooding. The incident is over now. There are still some areas of high water. Now we're moving to the recovery stage, where we're assessing the damage and then trying to identify ways to support both citizens whose homes have been damaged and then also businesses. So we essentially have to do a damage assessment. That's a technical process where we identify whether the home is minor damaged or it is not livable anymore. And so that is a formal process. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about recovery in a couple of weeks. But moving over again to the coronavirus, again, the World Health Organization has sent out a major advisory, major alert. Everyone is on high alert related to this virus that started in China, but now we have several people in the United States who have been affected and infected by the virus. We actually had the first American death noted a couple of days ago related to the virus. So this is an example of one of these hazards related to health that requires emergency management to support the multi-agency coordination. Because when you get a hazard such as this, you have different departments and agencies that have to play a part of it. And one of the core skill sets of emergency managers is the ability to coordinate and pull those folks together and understand what their capabilities and resources are to build a cohesive strategy to deal with the hazard. So I just wanted to get an update you on what I've been up to and how it relates to your readings and the focus of this course. And again, I think for many of you all, what you'll learn in this class and the readings will be helpful as you pursue your careers. One administrative item, a number of you all have started to complete your FEMA independent study certificates. I've gotten an email or two about whether you should send those to me now. I prefer for you to wait until the end of the semester after you've completed all of the courses and to email me a copy of the certificate with your name on it saying that you had completed the coursework. Please send that to me via PDF. That's the easiest way for me to look at it. So just wait until the end of the semester. I'll send out a note in April to remind everyone to send me that, and just send me one email with the attachments. Okay, moving forward, I want to talk about the first 3 weeks of the course. We have just concluded. Of course, the first week was dedicated to getting introduced to the class and reading the syllabus and introducing yourself to your classmates, and also getting the textbooks. Again, sorry for the delay related to that. But the first 3 weeks was really dedicated to understanding what is emergency management, what is the role of the emergency manager, and what is one of the first steps for understanding what an emergency manager does. That's identifying risks and hazards. And so you looked at the Essential Manager video, which I think is a great video that kind of really baselines what the emergency manager does in terms of the coordination role, the strategic level, communicating with the public and senior leadership, getting a full handle of what the threat and the issue is, planning for a worst case scenario, and the domino effect of disasters. One thing can lead to another hazard, another issue, another risk. And so that comprehensive view of what the emergency manager does, that's important, and it's going to be important for you to know for, of course, the midterm and the final. For the last 2 weeks, we've been focused on understanding hazards and threats, both man-made and natural, and understanding the unique attributes of those threats and hazards. So you should be able to understand the unique threats associated with a hurricane, for instance, versus a tornado or a terrorist attack. For a terrorist attack, of course, there's different subgroups on what type of mechanisms or strategies that terrorists use. You should understand those unique attributes. Again, one of the core responsibilities of emergency managers is to be risk managers, understanding the unique threats and hazards that their jurisdiction or state or country faces, and understanding what needs to be done as it relates to preparedness or mitigation to plan and prepare for those unique threats and hazards. Again, there are some threats that are high likelihood, low impact. There's other disasters that occur rarely, but their impact could be high. Again, here in Virginia, we know what some of our common threats are as it relates to heat waves, hurricanes, but we've also been introduced to some new threats and hazards. For instance, the earthquake that we experienced a couple of years ago. This week's discussion board topic was interesting because I really wanted to push you all to consider this Richmond, Virginia area and some of the unique hazards and threats that we face here in terms of the region. And so many of you all provided some good answers. One of the things that you all might not know is that we do have a number, two nuclear power plants that are located within a 100-mile, 50-mile radius of the city. And so that can impact the city if there's an earthquake, if there's some kind of terrorist attack, if there's some kind of accidental release. And so you have to be comprehensive in looking at the threats and hazards. We do have federal facilities here. We've had and recently protests here, so there could be some man-made foreign or domestic terrorist activities. We had considerable flooding from Hurricane Gustav and other hurricanes over the last 15 or 20 years that have, there's a couple of stores in the Bottoms Up Pizza, if you're familiar with that, in downtown Richmond. If you go there, they actually show the watermark. I forget which hurricane it was, but it was a couple of feet. It goes well above your head. It shows you that there's a lot of low-lying areas in Richmond. So I tried to push you to just think creatively and prioritize. Hey, what do you think are some of the big hazards in Richmond? I think I have. I think it's on their website. The city of Richmond has done a threat hazard identification risk assessment, and so maybe what I'll do is I'll send that out for you all to compare based on what your answers were. But again, I would just want you to be critical in terms of thinking about these places and their unique attributes and understanding historically what threats and hazards have occurred. Again, this is the role of the emergency manager to understand their place, understand what's going on in society, what has occurred historically, the unique topography, the unique location of the places where they are at, and then to plan based on that understanding of the unique attributes of where they're at. So again, looking ahead for the midterm and the final, you should understand what threats and hazards are, the unique attributes of them, and again, that provides a baseline for you then to begin to plan. If you don't know what's going on or what the threats are, you really can't plan. So you have to understand threats and hazards first. And so that moves us into this week where we actually talk about planning, some of the core concepts related to the planning process and how we plan, the steps that are taken for quality emergency management planning. So please do the reading. The reading also includes CPG 101, which is kind of the major guide for emergency management planning that FEMA produces. Any planner who works on the state, local level, federal level, who deals with emergency management has read the CPG 101, and it serves as a guide for how to conduct to do emergency management planning. FEMA actually right now is updating that guidance, but the one CPG 101 currently, the 2010 version is the one that's out on the street now. So please do the reading for this week. I did highly encourage you to also review the independent study certificate and complete the certificate through FEMA, because I think that highlights and complements the reading for the week. Just want to hit on the discussion board post again, just to recap that. I think everyone is doing a quality job as it relates to posting quality posts. Make sure you are doing that within the time span that I had put up there. Also make sure that you're responding to your classmates. Again, at least 2 responses each week, a minimum of a paragraph. So just make sure you're keeping up with that. Also, make sure you're keeping up with putting that information into your discussion board tracker sheet. I will be asking for that in about 2 or 3 weeks during the week of the midterm exam, which is the first week of March. Based on that information, I'll do an audit to make sure that everyone is participating. Starting next week, I will start to respond to approximately about 5 students each week. During my announcement, I'll let you all know who I've responded to, so you can kind of see some of my thoughts about your discussion board post. My plan is for the whole semester for me to have responded to each person in the class at least once. These won't be any critiques. They'll be kind of thoughts and the considerations based on what you posted, and again, just to forward the conversation about emergency management and planning. So just finally to close out, because I'm here at 16 minutes now. Looking ahead, we'll have a quiz that will be due by February 23rd. That quiz will cover planning and mitigation, which will be covered this week and next week. Looking ahead, as I mentioned, we have a midterm exam scheduled for the first week of March. So again, this is an online class. In order to get the full value of the class, you have to conduct read, participate in the discussion board questions. Feel free to send me an email if you have any questions about the material. As you finish the reading, it should start making sense to you based on some active emergencies that are occurring. I enjoy that. If you're interested in watching the news, you can actually hear about and understand some of the active emergencies that are occurring and apply it directly to some of the stuff that you're reading in the readings. So again, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Email. I'm also happy to set up a conference call if necessary as well. So thanks so much, and I'll be in touch. There will be a discussion board question next week, and again, the next major item due will be a quiz that will be due by February 23rd. So again, hope everyone's having a good week, and I'll be in touch. Thanks.